really think we overuse the word addiction. I think it's really, truly not an addiction unless it's ruining your life. I think that we are too quick to judge people based on our own code of morality. We're not seeing our higher potential as a species if we only focus on what's broken about us.
If you've ever wondered what it means to truly reach your full potential, or whether that's really even the right question to be asking, you're going to want to watch this one. My guest tonight is Scott Barry Kaufman, psychologist, author, professor, and all-round human potential detective.
I do think that we often feel the need to define someone else's narrative. This terrible thing happened to them, therefore they must be a victim.
Scott's work focuses on self-actualization, how we grow, what we value, and what is worth striving for in life.
Your life doesn't have meaning if you're not helping others. I call bullshit on that. I'm sorry. We put way too much pressure on people that they only like certain people are allowed to, live a life of meaning. Others aren't.
He teaches at Columbia, has written over a dozen books, and somehow still manages to squeeze in mentalism, music, and magic, which frankly makes me feel a bit lazy.
To be fully human, you have to risk alienating others to not be popular. You sell your soul when you feel like you need to be a people pleaser at all times, and when you feel as though your words always have to match up with how you think people want you to speak.
And most importantly, what kind of a meal would a humanistic psychologist order for his Last Supper?
So much really is the story you're telling yourself.
I agree 100%.
Isn't that it? I think we nailed it.
I think everything is the story.
Hooked it. It's gotta be like the secret of unlocking the universe lies in that. Sooner or later, you have to give up all hope for a better past.
This is Last Meal with Scott Barry Kaufman.
Food defines us, but every feast must come to an end. When facing mortality, life's big questions are served.
This is Last Meal, where I prepare the dish my guest would want if it were their last.
Here's what happens with me. I'll watch something on TV and there'll be a character who looks way older than I feel, maybe not that I look, and they declare that they're the same age as me. And that's when it freaks me out. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense.
Mm.
But the inverse makes you feel good about yourself, so that must happen too.
What would be the inverse of that?
Someone much younger than you who looks much, much older than you. For instance, I was watching Andy Kaufman the other day, and
yeah.
I was like, I look younger than this guy at age 34. 27 at age 27.
Yeah.
He looked like, like 45.
Yeah.
I'm 45, and I feel like I looked much younger than him, so I don't know.
He was the wrong Kaufman. He got the wrong genes.
The wrong Kaufman genes. Yeah.
So one of the reasons that I find you really interesting, apart from the fact that, you do a lot of work on like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which makes you kind of perfect for this show. And then I discovered recently that you wrote a book about victim culture. And I thought, we've got to talk, you and I. But then I remembered you also have a very interesting and different rise to fame that I would call like a path less traveled, I would say, which is kind of like my life as well. So there's a lot of parallels there. Would you be open to telling that story?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't even know what my narrative is anymore. Like, I feel like it's changed over so many retellings.
Okay, that's fine.
But I'll just lay out some facts. For the first 3 years of my life, I had an essential auditory processing disorder that made it very hard for me to process things in real time. And everyone thought I was stupid. It took me an extra, a couple milliseconds before I didn't hear back in my head before I responded. People took that slowness as though it was dumb. So I was bullied a lot as a kid for being slow. And my parents believed in me, which was nice. I have a nice little letter from my mom written to the teacher saying, my son is more intelligent and creative than you realize, but that didn't matter. And I was kept in special education for a very long time. We went to a special school for kids with learning disabilities in 5th grade. And I looked at my report from the 5th grade just recently. I got it from the school. And the school psychologist who tested me said, very bright kid, don't detect any central auditory processing anymore, but we got to keep him in special ed because he's a very anxious kid. And it really upset me when I read that because I was like, why do you think I'm anxious? You put me in fucking special ed and you told me I was retarded. Like, it's a cycle, right? Like, why do you think I'm anxious?
Yeah.
So I can only say that now as an adult, but I wish I read that report when I was 5th grade and told them to fuck off. But I did it, but I had to wait till 9th grade when a teacher took me aside after class, and a special ed teacher had never seen me before, and I was being especially cheeky that day. I was taking an untimed history test, and I remember saying something like, I have the rest of my life to finish it if it's untimed, what's the rush? I was being a real smart ass. But she took me aside after class. She said, what are you still doing here? And that question really set off something in my head. And I was like, yeah, what am I doing here? I'm going to take myself out. Can I do that? And I set up a whole meeting with all the school psychologists and the superintendents. And it was a big meeting because no student had themselves broken out of special ed. Right? Like the student themselves. So they didn't know what to do about that. There was nothing in their system for that. So they let me out on a trial basis, showing their confidence in me.
And when you had applied for the university degree that you wanted to get into, that didn't work out and you found a different way around that?
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I applied to the cognitive science department at Carnegie Mellon. Did not get accepted to that. I also, around the same time, was taking voice lessons, and so I thought, oh well, this will be cheeky. My whole life is absurd, and I'm aware that no one, like everything I do, I'm like, no one cares yet, but someday they'll hear the story.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just have to trust yourself that it'll be a good story.
Yeah.
And so I rolled up and I auditioned for their opera department, and they accepted me on a partial scholarship, and then I snuck in through the back door. After my first year.
To psychology?
Into psychology, yes.
Yeah, right. So you just became like a psychological Trojan horse at Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, I guess. I think if I interpreted that correctly.
Right. That's the way that I started DJing actually was my friend and I started a nightclub. We didn't know how to DJ, and then we just put ourselves on as the DJs. And as long as we made the party good, people would come, and then we found that we actually learnt a lot quicker because we were just thrown in the deep end. Yeah. And I think I don't know, do you ever think that in some way adversity or suffering can be like a necessary part for growth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
And how did that play out for you getting into psychology?
I wouldn't say that I suffered, but being rejected and then overcoming, can be a real catalyst for growth. We don't really fully appreciate how wonderful rejection can be. We really don't. We think that means door closed. We really shouldn't think of it as such. I've always been one to think about what is plan B, what is plan C, what is plan D. I got that from my grandma actually, but maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves.
No, you can talk about. Tell me about that.
Well, my grandma was like the most gritty woman I've ever met in my life. She was vice principal of an inner city Philadelphia school, and whenever they had gang wars, they would shove her in the closet and protect Miss G at all costs.
Really?
They're like, the number one priority here is protect Miss G.
Oh,
yeah,
man, that's cool.
She earned the respect of all the gangs, and all, inner city, Philadelphia. I mean, and she didn't fuck around. But she always, when I would play basketball, she practiced with me. She taught me how to play. She coached, I think, the women's basketball team at our high school. And she just taught me the value of grit and determination and not giving up. And I must have some of those traits from her. And yeah.
Do I have a similar appreciation of my grandfather, and who isn't with us anymore. And sometimes I think about the idea of legacy. Like, what does legacy mean to you? Like, what work do you do that will be left behind? And ideas like this. Maybe it's children for some people or whatever it may be. And
Yeah.
recently I found myself thinking, I think about my grandfather like a couple of times a week for whatever reason, something that I'm doing. It might be something that I remember he said, or I admired him for having brought himself up out of nothing and made something of himself and for his family. And lately I've been thinking to myself, I think the only legacy I really want is for somebody to think of me like that as often as I think of him. And do you think that's the same with you and your grandmother?
Wow. Well, I like that. Well, is it important for people to think of me after I'm gone? Is that what you're saying, basically? Yeah.
What I'm saying is, would a sufficient legacy, rather than any book you write,
Yeah, someone thinking
be
about
for a child or a grandchild to keep you in their memory in a positive way, in the same way that you do for your grandmother?
There's just something so profound about the fact that all we have that signifies our existence when we're gone is the memory of us in other people's heads. And when that disappears, there really is very little trace. Of course, you can write books, but in terms of the deep emotional impact you have on people's lives, that's why I love teaching. Quite frankly, I feel like if you asked me what am I at my heart, well, first of all, I would say it's very hard for me to answer because I have many hats, but one major one is professor. Like I love teaching, and I love when like students put like a note under my office door at the end of the semester, like saying how much it transformed them. I think that feels like a worthy legacy.
What you're talking about is something that's rewarding, right? And I think the thing I find interesting is like I meet a lot of highly accomplished people, or at least accomplished on paper, who seem really unhappy. Do you find that?
Especially in academia.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll bet,
They're all unhappy.
Okay. Well, I mean,
We get shit pay.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
But
do you think that's what it is?
that was a joke. But,
Yeah.
Not really a joke, but
Yeah.
That's probably a big source of unhappiness. Not that you have to be super rich, but to feel valued is a nice thing. I think it's part of the nature of the beast because, a lot of high achievers are constant strivers, and nothing's good enough for them. They're always on to the next man. Now, so a lot of them are perfectionists, but even if they're not perfectionists, they're never satisfied with their achievement. And that mentality is what allowed them to achieve in the first place. It is a bit of a curse and a blessing.
Yeah, catch-22 almost.
Yeah.
So tell me about self-actualization. Tell me what it is and why you think it's important.
Self-actualization is realizing the most alive, creative, unique center of your being. And we can get in touch with it. We can also feel like when we're getting away from it. There's a certain, I think we have a self-actualizing compass. Carl Rogers, the humanistic psychologist, called it the organismic valuing process, but I think it sounded too sexual, so I called it the self-actualizing compass. And it also doesn't make as much intuitive sense. But we have this thing that we know when we're moving in the direction of our values. And we really know, deep down when we've been a bastard. That's actually how my hero Abraham Maslow put it in an interview once. He said, he's like, I know when I've been a bastard.
Yeah.
That was, and yet we lie to ourselves and we tell us all sorts of stories. We come up with all justifications. I'm fascinated when I watch these colossal assholes on trial and the elaborate, justifications about, like I remember doing a psychological analysis watching OJ on trial, not the first time, but like much later in life, he got arrested for like stealing from like gunpoint.
Really?
Him and a bunch of people were like stealing collectibles or something. And that actually ended him up in jail. I remember watching that trial and all the elaborate sort of justifications for why he had to get the memorabilia back, whatever. But he must know at some deep level that he wasn't right.
Yeah. Oh, you said something
Sorry
about...
to bring OJ into this.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You were talking about, I guess, 10 minutes in, fucking OJ. You mentioned values. Do you think that there's a bit of overlap between in the Venn diagram of self-actualization and stoicism at all?
Oh yeah, a lot of people when they hear what I'm saying, I did a recent interview with Jonathan Haidt where he interviewed me for my podcast about the book. He said this sounds a lot like stoicism, but I've never really identified with stoicism as much as I have other schools of thought, other philosophies, such as I would say I'm more Buddhist than I am.
Really? I'm Epicurean.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I put the curiosity in Epicuriosity.
I'm a bit well, to be honest, I'm a bit Epicurean too. I'm a hedonist. And I use, when I say that, people think sex, right? But that's not, I really appreciate my senses.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's all I mean by that, you know? I really appreciate, like a luxuriating bubble bath, like I really appreciate pleasure from watching a sunset, pleasure from, whatever, even meaning, the meaning when I get great purpose in life, to me, that's a pleasure. I don't know why we don't talk about that as a form of hedonism,
Totally.
like getting pleasure from meaning in life. That's, so I think hedonists get a bad rap.
Yeah, I think, it becomes, well, I guess the general perception of hedonism is just that it's doing what you want that feels good, even when it's to the detriment of others. Okay. And I don't think that's what.
Can we unpack that?
Yeah,
and
sure.
By the way, I will not say let's double click on that because I used that phrase on Sam Harris's podcast, and there are little threads now making fun of me for saying let's double click on it every 5
Why?
Because every 5 minutes it is a little cringe. Every 5 minutes I said to Sam, let's double click on that.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So, but anyway, let's.
So what's the phrase you're using for this one?
I think, what did I say? Let's zoom in, or let's.
I don't.
Do you remember how I put it?
Yeah.
Let's unpack.
Let's unpack that.
I like that.
That's
you can't make fun of me for saying
2019.
But I also don't obviously don't care if people make fun of me. This is really great because Abraham Maslow, the great humanistic psychologist, talked about the importance of synergy in life. And he said, well, really transcendence is what's good for you is good for the world. And he distinguished between healthy selfishness and unhealthy selfishness. These ideas influenced me so much when I read them that I actually created scales, personality tests, and published them in the psychological literature, distinguishing healthy selfishness. You can actually take my healthy selfishness scale for free on my website at
I'm going to do that.
Self-Actualization
That
tests.
sounds amazing.
I have lots of other tests as well you can take for free at selfactualizationtests.com. I have a scale that tells you if you're more Yoda or Darth Vader, if you're a psychopath.
I'm definitely Darth Vader, right? Yeah. I mean, look at this. Yeah.
Look at this. You're a big teddy bear inside, though. Let's be honest. Okay, but So I think that that's my way of thinking about it, is that life is about a synergy. It's not about. It's about connecting with your highest potential, the most creative of life center being, and fully realizing that in such a way that your being is not your doing. You don't have to achieve like at this level that you win the Nobel Prize. Your everyday being is not only good for you, but it's also good for the world. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about being selfish, or you don't have to worry. I get enjoyment, I'm not saying like I'm the perfect example of this. That'd be an incredibly narcissistic thing to say, but I do. But an example of this is I get enjoyment from like just everywhere I go, like restaurants, whatever, just making friends with people,
Of course.
like kibitzing, as my grandmother would say. Kibitzing, and they remember you. I do magic for them. Yeah, kibitzing. Yeah, kibitzing.
Right. Does it have anything? Is it similar to the word kibbutz? Does it have anything to do with that?
Interesting. Maybe.
Because that means community, doesn't it?
Maybe. Means like, playfully,
Yeah.
I like doing magic for people. I enjoy magic so much, but I also, if it brings other people joy, then there's synergy.
Of course. Yeah. Like the joy that you derive from giving is completely different to the joy that you derive from, being a bastard to somebody. You know what I mean? Like they're both in the hedonistic sense.
Different type of selfishness.
Yeah, it's a different type of selfishness, and the distinction is important, right?
Yeah, it is. And I don't really understand a lot. Well, we don't need to go down that path, but just the whole idea of religion. You know, so much of religion systems are systems of control to make you feel shame for having desires and having pleasure for things. But a lot of those things, I could make an argument, they are also providing a benefit to others as well. Not all pleasures, you know, are sinful. In my opinion, you know, obviously, maybe Jesus might disagree.
So
Too controversial?
no, not at all. Not enough. Not enough, Scott.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, crank it up.
Okay.
if you will.
I need to up my game.
I was just going to make a link between, you know, the idea of community, the idea of hedonism, Epicureanism, which may involve things like food and wine.
Love it. I love savoring. I love savoring things.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whether it's a good friendship,
Yes.
you know, whatever, wine, sexual experience, whatever.
That's why it's the worst kinds of meals that we have are the ones in front of the TV really quickly or something like that. But sharing a meal with people is, I think, the best way to eat. So perhaps that's what we should do now.
We should, yeah. I just want to say I'm so honored to be here. Like,
I'm honored to have you.
I watch your series and I think to myself, wow, I'm going to be on this someday. Holy shit. Like, there's going to be a day where, like, I watch it and it's me.
That's right.
So, no, it's such an honor. Yeah.
Thanks for being on. But there's an intersection here of something that we were talking about earlier, which is your grandmother, right? And now I believe I was speaking to your mother on the phone.
Yes. You guys are like best friends now.
Yeah, Barbara and I. Hi, Barbara. We're very, very tight. And she gave me the recipe for this particular last meal. It's not often that that I get given a recipe for last meal. So much appreciated. And I'm going to reveal it to you now, and we'll see how close I got.
I'm so excited.
Scott Barry Kaufman, your last meal is hot dog meal.
Wow. That looks so good. That's gluten-free pasta?
It is gluten-free pasta.
Wow.
And I got the cheese as crispy as I could on top. So
wow.
Go ahead. And I'm going to try it.
I'm afraid to like touch this masterpiece.
What are you talking about? I've made it for you.
Because it's so just how I like it burnt.
That's how you like it burnt?
I like it burnt just like that.
Perfect. You got to tell me how it. Now tell me.
Not so good. Wouldn't that be funny?
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
The process of making this dish was self-actualization for me. Okay.
Really? Tell me more.
Because it has 4 ingredients. I would never make anything like this in my fucking life. Right. And I unlocked a new potential of mine.
Awesome.
So
there's tomato sauce in there?
It's tomato soup, in fact. This
bears a resemblance to how my grandma made it.
Does it really?
Yeah.
That's great.
I can imagine her taking this out of the oven.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there highly anticipating this on the chair on the table, and her, you know, she although she had like this, she put it in like a big I don't know what to call it, but a big pan. She would plop it down, and this really is bringing back really nice memories. Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my question: is if this dish was a memory, what would that memory be? Would it be that moment, or
it would be that moment? It would be that moment, and her being like, "I made hot dog mess for you today."
Yeah,
like surprising me when I came to the house. I was very, very sentimental and close with my grandparents. My grandfather was a cellist with the Philadelphia Orchestra, and it was a whole thing. I would come up to the stairs, watch my granddad playing in his study, and wave, and then I'd go inside, and my grandma would be like, "I got meat hot dog mess for you today." It's just, I was very lucky to be raised with love, and you know, I feel like we should, like, you don't hear that much these days. I feel like everyone feels a compulsion to talk about their shitty childhood. Or do you know what I mean? Or find the worst parts I could definitely find things in my childhood that weren't wonderful,
Yeah.
but I want to acknowledge there was also a lot of love, and I
Well,
want to own that. Yeah.
We're like, people are almost incentivized, to find the worst parts of their childhood because for some reason that gives them points socially or something like that.
Totally. What do you think of what you made?
It's fucking it's exactly what goes into it, right? I'm going to tell, for anyone at home who doesn't know what this is, hot dog mess, as defined by Barry Kaufman, is a combination of pasta, in this case it's penne, and chopped up pieces of hot dog mixed with tomato soup and cheddar cheese.
Soup.
Yeah. You say tomato, I say tomato.
Mm-hmm.
And then with cheddar cheese mixed through it, and I put some mozzarella on top because you like
love that
crispy cheese.
Yeah.
And that's it. It goes in the oven. It's one of the simplest last meals ever. Besides Ayla's fucking string cheese, it's one of the simplest, dishes I've ever made.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to make this.
It was no problem at all. I wanted to talk to you a bit about comfort food because obviously this is a comfort food thing for you, right? What do you think it is about comfort food, like psychologically, what draws us to it, I guess, and what defines comfort food?
I think we can have comfort anything. We can have comfort music, things that bring up a memory that we remember a time when we were safe. It evokes a certain feeling. Also, I think that eating food that's really satiating must psychologically do something to give you a sense of comfort. It's your feelings satiated. You're feeling, it's giving you a feeling of fullness that might even trick you into thinking you're safe.
I think you hit the nail on the head there because obviously people can have very personal comfort foods that evoke memories, as you're saying. But then there's also, the fillingness as well, because no one would say like a salad is a comfort food really, even if there was a great memory attached to it. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say. So there's
salad doesn't really fill you up much.
Yeah.
It's usually like food that's bad for you.
Yeah.
Like
that's right.
Greasy pizza.
Yes. You've hit on something there. Something
a
that's
lot of
bad
people
for
are
you.
overweight.
Too much comfort food. Too much comfort.
Yeah, because a lot of people use eating as a way to regulate their emotions.
If you could choose the setting of your last meal, where would you have it?
Something probably a sacred location, as trite as that sounds. Like something where there's like it feels a really open space, open air. Maybe like I see the stars in the sky. I see the oneness and continuity with the planet. I think that'd make me feel good. We don't want to think that when it's over, it's like forever, or even if we do think it's over forever, we still want to think like, well, our atoms will still be useful to the universe. We'll still continue being useful in some way. I want that reminder.
Yeah. So you want a sense of continuity in the place that you have your last meal.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing when you think of how long you weren't alive, so a lot of years, of the universe just churning, and then you pop up for a very short amount of time and poof, you go back into it. But it's all this process that, I'm starting to sound like Alan Watts over here, but I want to know that I'm not only not alone, on Earth, but I'm not alone in terms of where my atoms are going next. Those atoms are going somewhere, even though my consciousness is,
And wasn't it Carl Sagan who said we're all stardust?
Yeah.
Like we're all made up of things that exploded from stars. So I love the loop closing of looking out to them on your last day.
It's interesting. We think of it of a loop closing. You think of how many years the planet kept churning and those atoms were redistributed in all sorts of ways that didn't come together to form this consciousness for this amount of years, a very short amount of years in terms of the whole history of the universe. Those atoms don't really belong to you.
Okay. What do you mean by that? When you say they don't belong
Nothing
to you?
Nothing belongs to you.
Who is you?
Yourself doesn't even belong to you.
Who is you if not your atoms?
Well,
do you think that there's an extra part of the self that is not chemical?
Well, there is no self.
See, now we're really getting down to it. How can we actualize the self if there is no self?
I mean, we have created in this very, very short lifetime a lot of memories that we constantly keep reconstructing and imagining. All memories are really imagination.
Yeah.
That every time we start bringing those memories into consciousness, it starts giving us a sense of who we are. We allow our memories be a guide to who we are. Think of the inverse as dementia, a very heartbreaking thing for people who have to watch a loved one go through it. And with dementia, without those memories, I mean, they have no sense of self. So it makes you start to think, well, what is the self then? It's just the story that we tell ourselves and that we tell ourselves based on the feedback we get from the environment that we think is direct feedback, but it's all our reconstructions anyway.
Yeah. So it's
nothing's real.
Yeah. It's an illusion in a sense.
Yeah. The self is an illusion in a sense, but in another sense, it's real. I think there's different senses here. In another sense, our experience of our memories is real. Our imagination, our experience of our imagination, I think is real, even though the contents aren't real.
Yeah. It's as real as anything's ever going to be for us.
I mean, experience is all we have. That's my big thought about what is the meaning of life. It's to experience life.
Yeah.
To me, that's the best answer. That's the thing that makes the most sense. We can create all sorts of meanings if we want. It's to have a great purpose. Your life doesn't have meaning if you're not helping others. I call bullshit on that. I'm sorry. We put way too much pressure on people that they only like certain people are allowed to, live a life of meaning. Others aren't. No, we've all been blessed with this gift of existence for a very short amount of time. And the more we realize that and the more we lean into that and extract as much juice as we can from our consciousness, we're maximizing life. To me, that's it.
That's what pisses me off about. I was talking to Michael Shermer about this, about the people who say everything happens for a reason, which annoys me to no end. Not only because it's obviously just illogical, but also because, as I said to him, it robs me of any ability I would have to imbue meaning upon a situation, right? And I think that when you convince a large population that meaning comes from external sources, you actually just hinder their ability to provide meaning in their own life, which anyone can do, and you don't need to, it's not a gatekeeping situation. And it's just one of those things that I think is keeping people down, sort of subtly on a population level.
Yeah. I'm going to yes and that. I find it a bit absurd when I meet people, and this happens to me from time to time, within the first 2 minutes of hearing about me and my life, they'll be like, we were meant to meet. I'm working on a book right now exactly about what you do, and the universe has sent you to me. And I'm like, do I have any say in that? Why does the universe revolve around you?
Yeah, totally. It
just feels like, what am I, a pawn in this? I'm a pawn. I'm not the main character.
No, you're a featured extra in that your whole life and everything that you've studied and all the work that you did was
to lead up to the moment to help you with your fucking book. What do you think? I'm a clown to you? I get a little Vinny
Yeah.
What is that all I am to you?
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that perspective, but it is extremely egotistical to think that everything happens for a reason in that sense, because I always thought of it from a deistic point of view, where it's kind of like you're presupposing a creator that is actually writing the narrative of the world, which is egocentric in one way. But to think that you are somewhat important enough to be the main character in that situation is so far from reality.
There are people that think like that, and they go through the world thinking everything happens for a reason to them. But what an egocentrical view.
Yeah. It is.
Not everything is happening for a reason for you. Maybe everything is happening for a reason to everyone. Okay, maybe I can get on board there, but it's like, why you? Not Bob. Bob never has anything happen to him for a reason.
Yeah.
But just Mary? Because you went to a meditation retreat?
But even just at a population scale, you're kind of like, if everything happens for a reason, there's so much unnecessary suffering and death that happens in the world writ large, like constantly, which cannot be explained. Like it literally has no reason. It has causes, but reasoning is something that either people make it, or because the idea of reason at the end of the day,
It's too good.
literally
It's too good.
It's too good. You can't eat it.
No, it's too good for you not to eat.
Oh, it's too good for
caring
not
about
to eat
you.
it. All right. Okay. I see. Okay. I'm gonna have another piece of hot dog. What about do you think there is something
You
that
don't like the pasta?
No, I do. I mean, I don't like it as much as actual pasta because it's gluten free, and that's stupid. I know you have a condition.
That's true.
That's true. Is there something that you
We'll
believe?
make it my actual last meal someday, and I'll eat the real pasta. That'll kill me.
You wouldn't believe how many people that come on this show that expect that there's something untoward and they're going to be killed at the end of it.
And yet they still go on.
They can't resist, Do you think that there's something that at the end of your life you would want to make peace with?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I'm going to ever have a child. I mean, I'm going to have to make peace with that. If this is my last meal, I'm childless. I made a lot of decisions that sacrificed a lot of other things. I spent a lot of time on my career and on my books and on my ambitions along those lines. I felt like I had a lot I had to get out of my system that felt more important than raising a family. Now, hopefully, this isn't my last meal and I get to come back someday and introduce you to my son or something. That'd be an incredible experience. But or daughter. I mean, I don't mean this, or non-binary, whatever they end up choosing for themselves.
I get the sentiment.
Yeah, but if this is it, I need to make peace. I need to make peace that I've made choices in my life thus far. I do feel like I'm moving to a new chapter of my life. I can feel it inside a real change, like part 2,
Really?
Yeah, 0 to 45. I feel like I did it. 11 books in 10 years.
Yeah, that's prolific.
Like, give me a fucking break. Like, I don't want to write another book. I don't want to write another book for a while.
Yeah, stop writing books.
No, I'm just like bored.
Everyone's sick of your books.
I'm bored. I'm bored with writing books. Too easy. Need a challenge.
Yeah.
I need to find a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Now that'll be a real challenge.
That's a real challenge.
Handling a woman
And don't think to yourself,
is harder than anything else.
yeah. And then you'll be like, oh, this is great. I'll write a book about it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Because that'll be your first instinct.
Yeah, Neil Strauss does that. Yeah.
Oh, he does. Yeah. The game, right?
Yeah, but then he wrote about his marriage. And then, So anyway, I didn't mean to bring him into this. He's a friend of mine. Anyway.
Yeah. Carrying on with the Epicurean conversation, food, I bought a bottle of wine for you. And we're gonna open now. I want to tell you about it. So this is from Bergerac, which is kind of like Bordeaux region. And the reason I chose this particular wine was because it's a mixture of a bunch of different grapes. There's some Merlot in there. There's even some Malbec. And I don't think there's Petit Verdot, but I think there's Cab Sauv. And it exists in a very prestigious region, but it's a melange of different talents, and it punches above its weight. And I thought, what wine perfectly represents Scott Barry Kaufman?
I always punch above my weight. It's so true. Yeah.
So this wine is representative of you to the best of my ability.
I should not have, by all metrics, gotten a PhD from Yale. Like, what the fuck? Like, how did that happen?
I don't know. You tell me. How'd it happen?
Okay.
Do
you want me to
go, Paul?
Do the honor?
Yeah. I'm only going to have a little bit, and then I'm going to switch to white, and you're going to keep going on red.
Okay.
That's enough. Just wanted to try it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Can I do the smell test?
Absolutely. You can do whatever you like.
Oh, that's really good. It smells good.
Sensei. Is this a superstition where you can't swallow until I do it? What if I just stand like this for a little?
Make sure it's not poisoned. Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. This is, this is what Hitler did.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah, that was a weird day on Hitler, but he always did that. I'm just like Hitler.
Do you know that's why that's where the origin of cheersing comes from?
Oh.
Because in the olden days, you used to cheers and a bit of your drink would go into their glass and vice versa.
I didn't know that.
And that was evidence that presumably that you didn't poison the person.
No, I didn't know that. I never knew that. Wow. I thought that, I didn't realize the cheers had such a dark side to it.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a purely...
for such a jovial behavior. It's
purely light and joy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you somebody who holds grudges?
No, I'm not at all, actually.
Yeah.
And I should hold grudges more than I do sometimes, I think. Some people tell me, well, I think there are moments where I should get mad when I don't.
Okay.
I think I'm very paradoxical in a lot of ways that we've not even started scratching that surface. But one thing about me is that I think I have this pathological inability to take life truly seriously, or myself that truly serious, or anything,
I think I have that.
Yeah.
I think I have that.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's like even if I'm the presence of a colossal asshole who's like giving me an injustice where like anyone else would be like, oh, call the social justice police. I'll be like, dude, you need to take a fucking chill pill.
Yeah.
Like I can't take them seriously. I don't take it seriously enough that that it raises to level of injustice against me. But maybe I should. I'm not saying that's a great thing. Just it is what it is.
Yeah.
Could it have been a coping mechanism for us when we're bullied when we're young? I assume you were bullied.
I wasn't bullied, but
you weren't bullied. Okay. Well, I was bullied a lot as a kid. I said that cheekily. I thought it'd be a funny thing to say, but okay. So just thanks for leaving me hanging. Thanks for leaving me hanging on that one. So if you weren't bullied, fine, but I was hoping you were going to be there with me. I was trying to bond with you.
I would have been too young to defend you by 3 years, which is a lot when you're a kid.
That's true.
Especially at the age that you were getting bullied, which was what?
That's true. Maybe my defense mechanism was humor. Maybe you could psychoanalyze why I am the way I am. Maybe that's what it is in some sort of psychological
Between the
way.
two of us, I'm not going to be the one doing the psychoanalysis, but I will say that
I don't know.
As a defense mechanism, humor.
Yeah.
I often get accused of, making fun of my disability.
Yeah.
My own disability in a reflexive kind of self-deprecating way. Yeah. And I do use it as a tool of comfortability, but not in the way people think. Like people think it's for me to be comfortable with the situation, but it's actually to make others comfortable around me. And that still tends to piss people off sometimes.
Makes them uncomfortable? Does it make
I don't think it even makes them uncomfortable, but they anticipate it potentially making some people uncomfortable and get offended on their behalf, which makes no fucking sense.
Can you explain that to me? What do you mean?
If I were to take the piss out of myself for some reason, right, to do with my disability, and I
like
do
earlier,
that,
you're like, we can't play footsie.
Yeah,
I don't have a leg.
Exactly, something like that, right?
Which was hilarious, by the way.
Yeah. like sometimes when you do that in public, there are people who will take offense on behalf of
They're like,
sometimes of me. Sometimes they'll be like, well, you know, you've been put in a position where you feel you need to make jokes about yourself, you know, or there could be other people with no legs that don't find that as funny as you do or something. You know what I mean? So there's any way around it, like that you can't have a sense of humor about what the situation is.
You're not allowed to own your own narrative, and you're not allowed to have fun with yourself. You know, only to the extent to which someone can tell you that you're allowed to have fun with yourself.
That's true. And I would take it one further and say that I'm fine with anyone else having fun with making jokes about my disability. I really don't give a shit. Actually, all my friends do.
There's something really human about that. I mean, I'm going to take the comedian stance about this. I mean, Dave Chappelle has argued this. It's not like I'm the first one to make these points, but I do feel like I really resonate with comedians. I would probably be a stand-up in another lifetime, or maybe in this lifetime, but we won't talk about that. Yeah, like I think that if you lose the ability, let's put it this way, if you lose the ability to laugh at yourself, you lose your soul. You know, like the most profound narcissists have an inability to laugh about themselves, to make fun of themselves, to take themselves lightly.
Yeah.
You know, that's a real hallmark of narcissism. And I think that once you get to the level of pathological narcissism, I do think there's some soul issues there. You start to lose a soul because you don't have an ability to connect with your whole self anymore. You have to maintain a certain exalted state of self at all times. So you cut off 90% of the rest of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the other aspect of what I'm trying to say is that I don't regard my disability as a topic all too different from somebody's height or the color of their hair. It's an immutable characteristic. It's something I don't have control over, right? But I would make fun of a friend of mine because he was too tall to fit through a door or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it might be the same as him. You know, like quite often I've been with a friend where we'll be doing a DJ set at some venue, and you know, we get there and it's up like 20 flights of stairs or something, like rickety stairs. And he just looks at me and he's like, yeah, good luck with that one, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, just funny stuff, you know?
Did you see the Atari ad from 1983?
So you tweeted it. Yeah. The, who was it?
Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder can handle joystick. And he goes, yeah, they sent me, you know, my friends tell me this is great graphics. I don't even know what that means.
So good. Yeah, okay, here's the shtick on that, right? Why would people get upset with that? They're getting upset on behalf of the person who is the subject of the joke, right? If you get upset on behalf of a person with a disability, you know, because they might be offended, what you are saying is they need to be protected because they are too weak to have a sense of humor or laugh about themselves. Ironically, one of the more offensive things that you could say about those people.
It's a great point. And I think that if I had to choose between two coping mechanisms, one suffering and the other mirth, I want to choose mirth. I had a moment where I broke my arm. I was arm wrestling my friend at a bar at age 23 over whoever won would have sex with this girl. It was, this is what you do when you're 23.
I didn't do that when I was 23.
No, you didn't. But, you know, and my, you know, my arm just like flew around. And I fell back in the chair. We were both had some alcohol in our system, thankfully, you know, so it lessened the...
Yeah.
But my arm literally went all the way around, and I fell back, passed out. And when I came to... Well, before I passed out, I said, hey, guys, did you see that? My arm went like fucking 360 degrees. That's crazy. Yeah. You know, and I tried to make light of it. And that maybe was a good coping mechanism in that moment. You know, you at every moment you can sort of choose how you're going to react to it. Like at every moment you can be like, that happened. What am I going to do next? That happened. There are so many things, they happen. You can't change it. You know, This is a major theme of my new book, Rise Above, available wherever you buy your books. But Irv Yalom, one of my favorite existential psychotherapists, said, sooner or later you have to give up all hope for a better past. And I just think it's a brilliant quote, and it has transformed, that single quote has transformed so many of his patients' lives. Yeah. I do want to make sure that whatever I do between now and 80, that I continue really expressing all of me, my full self, and not, that is something I really value, is authenticity. And I almost find pretending when people do it, like chalk, nails on a chalkboard. To me, I've said this before, I am allergic to pretense. There's something about pretense that really makes me break out in hives. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. How do you even find out do you think it just takes time to work out what the authentic you is? Because, I'm always, I think I'm being authentic. I think what I'm being is honest.
Well, there's many different ways you can be authentic to parts of yourselves, right? Like, it's an interesting philosophical question. Let's say that you're at a restaurant and the food is terrible, and you desperately want to tell the waiter, take this back, it's terrible. And there's one part of you that would be authentic to you if you yelled at the waiter and said, please take this food back, you asshole. Tell the chef that they're an asshole. But then there's another side of you that if you are very kind in the way you do it, you're actually being authentic to a higher part of yourself that wants to have a productive outcome in that situation and also not be an asshole. So the question is, what's more authentic?
Yeah.
Being authentic to what part of you? Because I think both parts of you are equally valid. And I think they're both you. So where does that leave us? When I say authentic, I'm just talking about having a congruence between your inner experience and your outer expression. I think you can see when someone has a great incongruence. You see it a lot in the activism space. Sorry to go there. Not sorry. But in the activism space, you see a lot of this kind of virtue signaling. Like, they're like, oh, it's terrible, like kill white people, whatever. Whatever they're saying,
Not to be reductive, but yeah. It pretty much sums it up, I guess.
I see some things, I've seen some things.
Yeah.
And, like whiteness is a construct, and it's all, but yet it's like, there's this, it's supposed to be coming from a place of compassion, but I see an incongruence there because in a lot of instances, I don't see real, genuine compassion to make the world a better place. I see resentment. I see other things, I see resentment. I see anger. I see sometimes sour grapes, like, why does other people get what I deserve?
Yeah.
And a great congruence is being able to really match that inner experience with that outer experience. If you're mad, be mad. Be mad in a constructive way, I would say. Yeah. But don't bottle up, your real felt experiences and think that only some experiences are valid and other experiences of yours are not as equally valid. I think we should treat all of our inner experiences as equally as valid.
Do you think in the absence of true compassion, it's difficult for people to distinguish between what is authentic and inauthentic compassion?
Can you ask me one time, because I was savoring that?
Well, you were just talking about a lot of protesters and that there was a disconnect from authentic compassion to an extent. And do you think that could be that they genuinely believe they are being compassionate, perhaps because they have a disconnect from authentic, compassionate experiences generally? Like, is there a larger societal problem that could be pushing people into the kinds of corners where they feel they need to manufacture compassion?
It's an interesting, I think that'd actually be a good book title, Manufacturing Compassion. There is a lot of pressure people feel to manufacture compassion so that they appear compassionate. Duh. But there is a lot of peer pressure to constantly appear compassionate. But not everyone's like that. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of... Is Larry David like that? There are a lot of people who are... And I also realize that that was a character he played to a large extent on TV. But I think that to be fully human, this is how I want to put it, to be fully human, you have to risk alienating others to not be popular. You sell your soul when you feel like you need to be a people pleaser at all times, and when you feel as though your words always have to match up with how you think people want you to speak.
I was actually lamenting this just the other day when I was speaking to your mum on the phone, because she said, "Oh, like, how long have you known Scott?" And I'm like, "I've only actually seen him once."
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, so what?
Oh, do you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I literally called my mom the other day, and I was like, "Mom, I got to tell you something really important." And she goes, "Scott, I'm on the phone with Tom. Okay, can this wait?" I'm like, "Mom, what the fuck?"
Oh, I heard about this. This is the delivery thing that came to the house, and it was the wrong delivery. And I got the whole thing.
But what do you mean you're on the phone with Tom? Can this wait? Like, is Tom your new son?
I think that's what she's angling.
What am I now?
I think she's, you better watch
Tom's your new son? What does that mean?
Yeah. For some reason, I'm really popular with people's parents.
Oh, fascinating.
I don't know why that is.
I'm popular with old ladies.
Interesting.
In general.
Right.
Yeah.
I find myself spending time with
granny ladies, man.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with old ladies, but I think it's a cooking
That's
thing.
a weird thing to say. Yeah.
Yeah. The way you put it was.
Yeah, the way I put it. Yeah.
I think, spending a lot of time at places where I'm getting fresh produce to cook things, you run into old ladies, and it's always the same old ladies, and you're racing them to get the best produce.
There's something so beautiful about old ladies. Can we talk about old ladies for a second?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
There's something so undervalued about them, because younger women, they're just there's all these defenses they put up, when you smile at them or if you're nice to them, it's always looking maybe through the lens. I'm not saying they're wrong to do this, but they're...
No, I think there's a good evolutionary reason why they are like that.
And it makes sense. But you don't have that with old ladies.
That's true.
When I see an old lady in the grocery store and I smile at her and I say, "How's your day going?" There's no pretense. There's no like, "Oh, I have a boyfriend." It's like, why do you tell me you have a boyfriend? I just asked how you do it. Sometimes, like, there's no like, like, but it's just like with an old lady, you can just make that connection immediately. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah, I understand. There's that restaurant that we just watched the Netflix show last night, which was called Nonna's with Vince Vaughn, which was made about this restaurant in Staten Island. It is a true story. A guy who he lost his mother and grandmother, and they used to make him all these Italian dishes, and to honor her for the money that he got out of the insurance, he started a restaurant in Staten Island, and he hired all of the old ladies from the nonnas from the community to be the cooks.
Beautiful.
And it just became a wildly successful restaurant.
Yeah, I love this idea.
And it got a lot of media and stuff like that. I don't know if we'll have time to go there, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Do you have any habits that you regret from your younger years?
So you're asking, do I currently still have remnants of habits?
No. Are there any habits that you had from that you regret?
Yes, I have a long list.
Okay.
My extreme self-doubt, my body dysmorphia, my low self-confidence, my vulnerable narcissism, and my fear of rejection.
Do you still have a fear of rejection?
No, not really. In fact, I embrace it.
Yeah.
I've learned to actually love it.
Totally, because it was the thing that effectively got you into your psychology degree, right?
Yeah. How powerful is it to overcome that fear? I think that probably out of all the fears, like if you can overcome that, it just takes your life to the next level. You're not afraid of taking risks. You're not afraid of putting yourself and your authentic self out on the line. Yeah. But when I was younger, all those things, I really I mean, you could say I was a very sensitive child, but the word sensitive, what does that mean? I was like, like Kanye West is sensitive, right? He's a sensitive asshole. You can be a sensitive asshole. Now, I'm not saying I was an asshole, but I think there was some vulnerable narcissism there, which I identified, and I think actually made me who I am today and helped get me where I am today in a big way.
What's a lesson that, had you learnt it earlier, would have changed your life for the better, do you think?
Well, self-belief is just banger, as they say in England. Don't they say that? They're like,
I don't know. I'm not from England.
I know. I actually know you're not. Yeah, just being able to, I had this thing, and it still rears its head sometimes, where I'm like, I dip my toe gently into something before I get confidence in it. Like, I'll be like, oh, and like, just dip my toe. I don't like jump in. I don't like, how there are people, they walk around like puffed up chest and just like they don't wait for feedback. They're immediately like confident. Like, hey, what's up? Now, first of all, I can't stand those kind of people. But second of all, I think I could have used a little more of those skills when I was younger.
Right.
Because I would always be so like, sensitive and like, oh my God, are they going to like me if I, how do I know? And then when I got feedback, they liked me. Then I transformed into, I could calm down. I could transform into, just step into my real authentic body. But,
so what's an example of something that you would sort of dip your toe into the shallow end of? Like, is this like learning a skill or joining a social group?
Lots of things. I mean, in school and, I was in special ed, right? So that took a lot of time for me to gain confidence that I was actually an intelligent human being. I mean that really did a number on my psyche. Where I was like, wow, you mean I can comprehend physics immediately? Like, no, I'm not. Like, there were still a lot of years after I took myself out of special ed where I didn't realize that I actually had the intelligence to handle some things. And then I handled them, and I was like, I continually kept shocking myself. I was like, wow, I'm not supposed to be able to understand this.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be this intelligent. Then there's a bit of a backwards compliment, but yeah.
I get it. But okay, so that sort of reminds me of something that I'd opened in another tab that I wanted to discuss with you, which was, to what extent do you think people telling a human being that they are a way makes them that way? We discussed how you'd watched the episode we did with Ayla, and we talked about trauma, and she mentioned that sometimes when you're telling somebody that they're traumatized, it's traumatizing.
I really resonated with that, and I really admire her too. And I admire her authenticity. Like she lets it all hang out, right? She's whatever. Yeah. I like people who do that. Yeah. I do think that we often feel the need to define someone else's narrative, and say, oh well, this terrible thing happened to them, therefore they must be a victim. And how do you know that person wants to see themselves in that way? Have you asked the person? There's a reconception of how to deal with childhood trauma now as a therapist. There's a more empowered approach now, where therapists are being trained to not judge. Even if the child was sexually abused, for instance, you don't have the child come into therapy and you lay that out to the child and say, just so you know, you were sexually abused. You're going to be fucked up the rest of your life. You're a victim, and now we're going to talk about your trauma. Don't do that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound pragmatic.
Yeah. No. Don't tell that child their whole life narrative, and in a certain way, you're fucking them up doubly.
Well, yeah, that's the point that Ayla was making, and my response to it was that I had always had a response from other people to how comfortable I am with my disability that they didn't believe me.
It's amazing how someone like argues with you.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just that they kind of think to themselves like, oh no, there has to be something wrong here. Like, are you really okay under all of it?
I've been mentioning you a lot on podcasts I've been on lately.
You mentioned that.
And I say, like, I think you look cool.
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I understand you use the word disability, and maybe in some objective sense, I don't even know what that means for there to be an objective
disability. It's just how we define it, I guess.
But like, I think, how did I describe it the other day? I was like, yeah, and this motherfucker rolled up to my party, like, what's up, with his two hooks out, and I was like, he was like the coolest guy at my party, and
besides you, of course.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah, never outshine the master.
Because I did magic,
as Robert Greene would say.
Yeah. I love Robert Greene. He's a friend of mine. And I don't know. I think you were cool. I'm not just saying that, and I don't know. Like, it's interesting. I think a lot of it is like how you own who you are and what you are.
Yeah.
There are people with 10 out of 10 looks that like have a vibe that people stay away from. There's someone who's short, a short king with just intense confidence that people gravitate. So much really is the story you're telling yourself. Isn't that it? I think we nailed it.
I think everything is the story.
Hooked it.
Yeah.
Hooked that one.
I think everything is the story you tell yourself.
It's got to be like the secret of unlocking the universe lies in that.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how much that is really the truth.
I agree 100%.
All these other things are proxies for that, right? Like being tall might be a proxy for something. Oh, they might have status, they might have confidence, but they don't really care about the height. They care about the status, and they care about what's underneath it. Actually, I heard Neil Strauss make that point recently as well. But I really think that's a big part of life. I really think that's a big part of life. Whatever has happened to you, the story you tell yourself about your future potential, given that this has happened to you.
Absolutely.
Do you have a learned helplessness about it? Or do you have a learned hopefulness about it? Yeah.
And that's the thing that I try to communicate most to people is like, look at it as an opportunity for a cognitive restructuring. Like, and not just like disability, but anything that fucking happens to you. Do you know what I mean? Because I would often really get annoyed with this trope I would always hear from people where they would say, I never could have gone through what you did and been so positive on the other side.
People really say that?
Oh, yeah. That was actually one of the most popular things I ever got.
It's a weird thing to say.
No. That's a very common thing for people to say to me. And it annoyed me not because I felt they were trying to be nice. They were trying to be nice to me. I get that. I wasn't annoyed because I was offended, but I was upset that they didn't think more of themselves, right? And I think I would have been guilty of it too before I lost arms and legs. I would have thought, oh, I could have never gone through that. You never know what you're capable of until you're put in that position, right? And so why would you have such little faith in yourself?
That's actually a really excellent point. Because I do think we have deeper reservoirs of resiliency that we give ourselves credit for. Very rarely when we get in the situation that we feared, is it exactly what we feared? When I was I was scared. I've had this long-standing fear of being stuck in an elevator.
Interesting.
Nightmares about it constantly. And I when I lived in this apartment in California for 5 years, I had a stopwatch and I timed it precisely from the top to bottom. So I knew everything was going according to plan. And...
That's a little insane.
Okay. All right. Don't remember asking you for your opinion. And then I shit you not, the very last, the day before I move out, I hop in the elevator to meet someone downstairs. And door ain't moving. And I'm like, I had humor about it. Nothing. The way I reacted to this, everything was nothing like I had feared for how many years of my life. My immediate reaction was, really? The day before, like 5 years I've lived here, I time it religiously. You're going to like do this to me the day before I leave.
How long were you stuck?
Well, it turns out it felt like days. But they told me later it was 25 minutes. That's still a long time to be stuck in an elevator.
This elevator takes 25 minutes. Oh, it's not even broken.
I took the stairs. I ain't taking no elevators no more. No more.
What is the philosophical wind that sails your boat these days?
So it's funny you ask that, because I have a whole sailboat model of self-actualization where I have the boat itself represents safety needs, like need for connection, self-esteem, security. And the sail represents growth. And also, we have to know what port we're sailing to. and move in that direction. And in order to do that, you have to risk the opening up your sail. You can't just be safe your whole life if you want to grow. But interestingly enough, I felt like I've spent so many years with the sail open that I'm like, enough of the sail. I'm doing life in reverse right now.
Oh, I thought you were going to say outboard motor.
Well, what now?
Outboard motor.
What does that mean?
Well, an outboard motor is one of the motors that go on the outside of a boat. So rather than a sail, it would be.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, sorry to muddy the metaphor, but yeah.
No, maybe you clearly know more about the operations.
I know those two words,
No,
outboard motor.
That's cool. No, I really like that. But I think that I'm kind of doing life in reverse in a way. Like, I feel like I had the sail open for 10 and 11 years, and I'm really okay now with the winds just blowing my boat, along, so that I have nothing but the utmost of gratitude for waking up alive. Yeah, like I've shifted to just appreciating the end game versus just so many years of moving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you think you only just recently moved back. Do you think you're going to be here for a bit?
Who knows? I start this full-time position at Columbia. Who knows if Columbia will be here? No, I'm joking. Next year. Who knows if Columbia will remain as a university? But who knows? I'm taking life in 1-year increments right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that approach.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's an experience that you had that's worth every cent?
The Jora coffee machine that I bought.
Yeah, you told me about
$4,000, and it makes the best. Every morning I wake up now and I look forward to drinking coffee. I'm like, let me just extract the flavor and the smell. I love the way coffee smells.
Have you not been seduced by those, videos on the internet of the dudes who grind their own beans with an old school sort of steampunk looking accessory?
I'm aware of that. I actually have that too.
Oh, you do?
I'm a big coffee geek. So I have a top-of-the-line espresso machine, but I also, you didn't ask me, Scott, do you also have a top-of-the-line setup for drip coffee and pour-over? It turns out I do, but I have two different sets.
Glad I asked. Yeah.
Funny you asked that, because I have the most expensive, one of the best burr grinders that they make for pour-over coffee.
Oh, okay.
That's separate. You don't want to mix. You want to keep your espresso separate from your pour over.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Vietnamese egg coffee?
No.
I think you would really like it.
Cool.
It's a little sweet, so it has condensed milk with it.
Oh, that sounds good.
The Vietnamese are great with coffee.
Cool. I like sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. What is a hill that you're willing to die on? Some kind of issue with which most people disagree.
I really think we overuse the word addiction. I think it's really, truly not an addiction unless it's ruining your life. And I think that we are too quick to judge people based on our own code of morality when someone else may just be enjoying their life.
Give me an example.
It's interesting. You watch people who may have drank a lot of alcohol become and it has ruined their lives, and they go through sobriety, and then they go through all that, and they become so judgy of others who drink even a tiny bit of alcohol. And it's like, okay, like that other person is not addicted, so why are you trying to ruin their life too? Just because your life was ruined. You see it with religion. You see it with maybe pornography. That's maybe controversially. That would be maybe too controversial.
Yeah, I'm always hearing a little, like, I don't really pay attention to most of those conversations, but there's a bit of cosmic microwave background radiation. I'm always chatting about pornography addiction and how it's quite problematic for young teenage boys. Apparently,
I think we overuse the word addiction.
Yeah.
I think that we just really need to allow that different people have different ways of bringing themselves pleasure that don't cause harm to others. And if it's not ruining their lives, it is not technically an addiction. I do understand that this is a bit controversial territory, but that is a hill. You asked, he said, Scott, you gave me a hill.
Exactly
Give me
what
a
I
hill. So I'm giving you a hill.
Give me
You didn't want me to give you something just boring, right? Like that wouldn't be a hill.
Can I expand on it?
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say double click. And say, would you put anxiety in that same camp?
Maybe.
Would you put ADHD in that camp?
Yeah, I would. I'm a big fan of like neurodiversity and kind of claiming that as a positive aspect of your identity. I think that if you have certain ways of being, certain ways of thinking that are not ruining your life and you found a way to channel it into your work. I'm glad you brought up that example because I had written about the link between ADHD and creativity, for instance. And I'm pretty convinced that ADHD enables certain aspects of creative thinking more naturally than if you don't have it. Because you are able to connect dots and able to not tag as irrelevant lots of things. And of course, that can become a hindrance in a lot of contexts. But if you find a way to make it work in your career and your lifestyle, I wouldn't call it a disability. I wouldn't call it a disability if it's not a disability.
Okay. Not really what I'm asking, though. What I'm asking is
addiction. We're talking about addiction still?
Well, you were saying that we are too quick to call things addiction. And my question is, are we too quick to call something, I have anxiety, I have ADHD, stuff like that? Is that something that you think? I mean, a lot of people are claiming that that's overdiagnosed, self-diagnosed. Do you share that? I mean, you're a psychologist. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, people are very quick to self-diagnose themselves with things that they don't really clinically have. I don't know if this is where you're going with it, but if you're just awkward every now and then, you may hear some of the characteristics of people with autism, and then you say, "Oh, I'm autistic. That's me." And it's like, no, I mean, all these things are parts of humanity. We can find ourselves. The truth is, we can find ourselves in a description of any DSM mental disorder. They're all just a kaleidoscope of.
That's true. There's a sort of astrological aspect to which you could actually build in many characteristics of your own life if you were so inclined.
Psychopathy is one as well. I mean, we love saying that, oh, they're such a psychopath. And like, really, you've never lied before to get something you want. You've never really gotten a thrill from someone else's pain. Like I'm not saying that makes you a card-carrying psychopath. But I'm saying a lot of people who are self-diagnosing themselves, especially youth, I think there's this tendency to identify with a victim sort of identity on social media to get likes and attention.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at.
Yeah, there's a peer pressure. You can get addicted. That's one in to the word addiction.
Yeah.
You can get addicted to the likes and the sort of excitement of getting that attention for a victim identity. I think that's very true.
And I noticed recently, when the past couple of years, one of the...
It took me a while to get there.
That's okay.
To your point. There's something called editing.
Yeah, is it DID, dissociative identity disorder? I've noticed a lot more people on my social media feed identifying as having that. And I can't help but think to myself, like, to what extent is this, like, has this always been the case and now they feel that they are comfortable enough to be open with it? Or is this a case of self-diagnosing? Or is this a case, as you said, of the more I talk about this particular thing, the more I'm rewarded in the social media landscape, and if it is the latter, if it is what you're suggesting, like, that doesn't sound productive on a population scale level, don't you think?
No, it's not productive. And it's in a lot of ways we're inhibiting our higher potential. We're not seeing our higher potential as a species if we only focus on what's broken about us, and we don't. There's also something not incredibly inspiring about that. We don't want to lose our inspiring characters of society. People who've overcome the hardships and show us how that's possible. I feel like I fear sometimes in our society we're losing that. Students are applying to colleges not talking about how much they've overcome, but talking about how much they've suffered.
Do you think, to kind of, if I were to attempt to sort of steelman that position,
Still manable.
would it be, I'm applying to this university despite hardships that I have overcome, and this is my opportunity.
Yeah, but they haven't overcome anything.
Yeah, well, this is my opportunity to overcome them.
This is my opportunity. Whew.
Where do we draw the line between what is an outcome and what is opportunity?
Well, I mean, I'm like, good point. I mean, that's a good point. By senior year of high school, if I'm evaluating someone to be a member of this university, I'd want to see some indication that they've done something that shows their ability to overcome hard things. Or else, why do I want them at this university?
Yeah. So they need to have shown at least a sort of simulacrum of what they could become earlier in life, such that they could reach that a greater potential by you giving them the opportunity of putting them through a particular class.
Yeah, or else you're just accepting a student who will spend 4 years at every class complaining about all their hardships.
Yeah.
And driving all the teachers insane. Right?
Speaking of university, you taught a class called The Science of Living Well. Do you still teach that?
Oh, 100%. It's one of my staples.
Okay. So, in your opinion, what is a life well lived?
Oh, wow. That's a big question.
We're not here to sweat the small things, Scott.
I know. It's just, I teach a whole 3.5 month course on that.
Sure. Yeah. But what's the headline? Like, I mean, what do you think if you had to, what's your elevator pitch?
Well, my condensed view of living well is not a life not a life that revolves around happiness or a life that revolves around achievement. Neither of those two things. It is really about self-actualization. That meaning, living a life that is a virtuous actualization of your highest potential, where what is good for you is automatically inherently good for the world. And you have found a great harmony and peace between with yourself, where you're not fighting a war with yourself. So that's a big part of the Science of Living Well journey that I help my students with, is resolving a lot of their inner conflicts, because if you spend too much of your life at war with yourself, you don't see your higher possibilities, and you're also wasting a lot of precious time you could be spending really actualizing and developing your highest potentialities.
Do you believe that you're in a period of transcendence?
Oh, well, if you mean am I going to die soon? I hope not.
That's not what I meant.
Okay.
On the journey of self-actualization, do you believe you're in a period of transcendence, or at least approaching it?
Yeah, I do. I don't feel the ambition I once had, which is very self-motivated ambition. I don't feel ambition. I am excited and inspired by the opportunities to inspire students and to transport my life into their life. I don't feel like my life matters anymore, I think is what I'm trying to say. Like it used to, My life doesn't really matter at this point. It's what matters is their lives and how I can, kind of help them. In a way, I guess they are like my children.
And also, you're coming to a point in your life where what is good for you is good for them, right?
That's true. That's right. And it took many years to build that.
Yeah.
So I think it was important to build that foundation.
Absolutely, yeah. If you had to relive 1 year of your life from your past, from January 1st next year all the way through, you couldn't take the knowledge that you have with you now back, and you can't do anything differently, but you just have to relive it. What year would that be?
2005 and to 2006. Yeah.
Okay. Incredible. Tell me why.
The amount of freedom and just embracing of the world I did that year. I was my year at Cambridge University. I was a Gates Cambridge scholar, and I was away from home for the. I mean, I was I was in a different country, so my mom couldn't call me. There was a big time zone difference. As much as I felt for the first time, I really felt free, and I was starting to discover who I was. I had multiple British girlfriends that year, which was a delightful situation. Not at the same time there. And I felt really good about myself that year. I was firing on all cylinders. I signed up for just to see all sorts of things. I started in opera. I did hip hop. I did professional hip hop dancing. Like I said, I had girlfriends. I had my intellectual life was flourishing. And I felt free for the first time. I felt like I'm really my own independent person. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, it was a wonderful year.
If you had to give a TED talk about something that you know embarrassingly well, but it's not psychology, what would it be?
Magic.
Tell me about your fascination with magic.
Well, how to create the magic that you want to see in the world.
That'd be the title?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I was blown away by the magic that you did at your place when we came over.
Really?
Yeah, yep. It was fantastic.
Even though you figured out one of the things, but yeah.
Well, not completely. Wait, so what did I say that I figured something out to you?
One thing.
What was that?
The Polaroid.
Oh, the Polaroid? No, I still didn't figure it out. I just I remember that when you gave it to me, I could see it, but the thing at the end with the Wikipedia,
that took a lot.
That was fantastic.
The thing with
that was really good.
Yeah, I think it's like a metaphor for life. It's like there's so much preparation that went into just creating that magic and making it look like it was spontaneous magic. But the amount of preparation I went into for that is insane. Trying to get it just right and you hope that the moment works out just the way you wanted. And but yeah, I'm really into magic these days. I'm into mentalism. And I love that I have the ability now to instill awe and wonder in anyone on demand in a way I didn't have that before, I feel like it's a nice thing to have in one's back pocket.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really good. It's super entertaining. I want a magician at all my parties now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you could leave your loved ones with one final message, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I hope we can meet again someday in heaven, but if that ain't going to happen, then I feel deeply appreciative that we got a chance to share human existence at the same time.
Scott Barry Kaufman, thanks for being on Last Meal. This has been an incredible conversation. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have cooked for you and to have eaten with you. Cheers.
I feel the same way.
And we will be new friends.
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Scott Barry Kaufman has a way of making anyone he speaks to feel as intelligent as he is. He's fearless. In a world where so many accomplished people seem guarded or performative, Scott wears his heart on his sleeve. What strikes me most about Scott isn't just his ability to help others realize their own potential for transformation, but his refusal to take his own existence too seriously. Scott's real magic trick lies in transforming absurd moments into wisdom about resilience and authenticity. Scott understands something profound. The stories we tell ourselves about our lives matter more than the circumstances themselves. And that's all from me.